Welcome back. All right, so talking about something a little different today, and looking on the channel, I haven't talked about really expanding the NHL's fan base in a long time that I can see. So I wanted to talk about this a bit, and it may go over a few different areas. I will touch on expansion in the NHL a little bit, but I want to talk about the idea of expanding the fan base. And right away, people are like, "No, put a team in Quebec City." Okay, focus. Now, I'm going to start off talking about Mexico City. Mexico City, of course, um, Mexico being just south of the U.S. You've already got Canada, you've got the U.S. Mexico's pretty cheap to get to, and for the National Hockey League, there is an opportunity for outreach here. And NHL teams have been doing this. Vegas joining the fray this year. So the Kings have held clinics there since 2018. Dallas has held clinics there as well. So you're going down there, you're creating new fans, you're showing them how the game works, and I'll talk about that as well here. Now, the learn to play clinics are a great idea because watching the sport, you might be like, I mean, it kind of looks interesting, but what? And so having people actually go out and have that experience is something a little different. Now, Vegas has started working there too, and of course, this gets a lot of attention this week as they do their tour through Mexico, and the head of ice hockey in Mexico quite excited about the chance they have to partner up with National Hockey League teams, what that means to their local signups, what that means to the excitement for the sport locally. And again, from an NHL perspective, you are not looking at Mexico City as a future expansion city. You're just not. But if you hold a global series game there, you could create some fans. So let's say 20, 25,000 people go in the building. And a quarter of them really, really enjoy the game. A quarter of them go, it's not bad. And maybe the other half are bored, confused, not all that enthused. Let's just say. Now, I don't think that's how the numbers would line up. But if you've converted thousands of fans by having a game down there, that can lead to a lot. Now, the reason I say this is because as a kid, I grew up watching a lot of Premier League soccer slash football, right, which is from England, and really enjoyed watching these games and finding out about these rivalries. And there was actually a local show which would sort of chop up a soccer game. So soccer games are 90 minutes, and it can be a bit of a watch. So they would chop it into like a 30-minute highlight reel package kind of thing, right? Here's the game condensed into 30 minutes. And I would watch those games. I get really excited. I thought it was great. So this was before the internet. This was before you had like 500 channels on cable. You'd have your 13 channels. And so I would watch I think it was every Sunday. They had it on locally. And I became a fan of Man United, and I liked Liverpool because I didn't know that wasn't allowed to like both. And now I'd have to say, Man City. Man City's done a good job. But that shows what I'm trying to say here, which is like obviously the Premier League's not going to expand into Canada at any point, but here I am, a Western Canadian, talking about teams that I have rooted for. At times, being like, "Come on, Nottingham Forest." Nope, 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 can't have nice things. But it shows, and one thing that it does too is it means that I would go out and play soccer with friends of mine, and yeah, every now and then I'd think, in my mind, like, oh, whatever famous soccer player going down the wing, taking shots. In general, I played net when I played soccer. I like to play goal, but I would try to do it like a soccer goaltender. Like I try to look back and forth like they did, and no, I'm gonna fake. I'm gonna throw it that way. I'm gonna kick it down there. I wasn't all that great, but I could play the part. I could act the part, and this is what the National Hockey League wants to do globally. Now it gets trickier because ice hockey, right? So for a lot of people, for it to qualify as hockey, it has to be ice hockey. Well, when I do the meetups, I don't do ice hockey meetups because if you're going to introduce people to the game, um, you're going to want to do it via ball hockey at first. At least personally, this is how I see it, because then you don't have to make sure that they learn how to skate first. Then you don't have to worry about them having all the equipment necessarily. You can just go out, play a little ball hockey. They sort of go out and get that tactile feel for the game, and it's kind of fun. The strategies can be similar, not the same obviously as ice hockey, but similar. And it's a fun sport to play. So the idea of getting other countries to play this, indoor rinks are really important, and obviously you're going to need to have that groundswell of support publicly to uh, make sure that the government or whoever's going to build these arenas is going to want to build them, because hockey rinks can be pricey. Pricey to keep cold during the summer, for instance, if you want to keep ice in it, and just pricey to run. Operationally, it is far more expensive, I would think, for hockey than for a lot of other sports, because there's a lot more to it, and the environment has to be cold. And during the summer, it's not generally cold enough to make it worthwhile. Now, again, the global series has been a way for the NHL to try to convert fans globally. Last year, and I mean, it better be globally if you're going to call it the global series. Last year, they played the game down in Australia. And what got me with that was more that it was preseason, but I get it. I get why putting regular season games in Australia would be a challenge with the huge time difference, almost a day difference, really. And so I think these are a great idea. I think that it can lead to more people watching the game than before. So it's not about ignoring the current fans. It is not about hating on the current fans in chasing a new fan. It is the idea that we have this fan base. We have it locked down. We want to appeal to others too and grow our fan base, is where the NHL's at. So a 2022 report showed that there was a 37% of hockey fans were female. I'd like to have a discussion with the fact that only 4.9% of my viewers are female, according to Google stats. But hey, it happens. But that's a 26% increase over 2016. And I think that with the PWHL having had record attendance for women's hockey this past season, that 2022 report is probably low now. I would say it's more than 37%. I'd say it's probably closer to 40 or maybe even higher. And I don't care why they watch the game. It's just like if people watch my videos, I'm not necessarily concerned about why they watch them, where they're watching them from, just that they watch the videos. When I play a game of street hockey, I don't care how many of those people actually play hockey. I don't care who they've played for or with or any of that. I just care that I get a certain number of people to come out, have a game, people don't get hurt, and that they enjoy themselves. And that maybe I'm building a community a bit where these guys talk a bit after, they exchange information, and they become friends coming out of it. And I've seen that with the meetups we've had locally. I think we have that too now with the group we have that we meet with when we go down to Anaheim. And I like to think that, in the times we went down to Vegas, especially early on, that we were able to at least experience that ourselves too. Because Vegas had created that community. It just felt like Yvonne and I were kind of welcomed into that community when we were down there, which was great. And now these are communities that can thrive and can grow and can say, hey, why don't you come on out? I know there are people who come out and play street hockey that have no idea who I am. They don't watch my videos, but there's a street hockey game, so they're like, sure, we'll go out and do that. So for the National Hockey League, a much bigger organization than anything I can ever build, having these big games in markets where we as fans look and go, but why? That's the thing, is that it is a market you may not expect, but it's a market that they could build up so that that market is buying merchandise. Maybe they're watching hockey games, downloading the app, and interacting with the National Hockey League and generating more revenue. The NHL is a gate-driven league. And when 2020 rolled around, we found out just how vulnerable the National Hockey League was as a gate-driven league. Just how quickly they would go from, we made record profits, we're doing great, to, and now we've lost billions of dollars and we're in trouble, because most of their money's from gate. So if you play these games in other markets, if you market the sport outside of your traditional haunts, you have a better chance of making more money. Yes, a team in Quebec City would generate a lot of money, but does it generate new fans? Maybe a few, maybe some lapsed NHL fans would come back, some guys that are still ticked off that the Nordiques got moved. But in general, you convert more fans by going to Utah, by going somewhere you haven't been before, which is where expansion could get tricky if the NHL is going to go back to markets they've been in before. So that's why I'm more excited about Houston than Atlanta. It's not that I don't think Atlanta can work. It can. It's just I haven't seen the NHL in Houston before. I'm excited to see what that could do, right? Whether it succeeds or it doesn't, we don't know. There are a lot of people that will say that certain markets won't work, and they'll just jump on it when attendance drops a little bit or whatever it is. But I think it can work. I think it's an entertaining game. I think it's fun to watch. I have always enjoyed watching hockey going back to when I was a very little kid. I just didn't get obsessed with it until I was 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that region, and wasn't watching the NHL a ton until I was 8 years of age. So in the NHL, I looked up this information. Double IHF rinks. There are 2,035 double IHF regulation rinks in the U.S. In Canada, there's 8,300. I'm thinking since that's an even number, they just stopped counting. They went, you know what? We're good. Stop sending us names of rinks. We get it. Canada has them everywhere. And there are, just off the top of my head, I can think of 4 rinks that are within, I'd say, a cycling distance of maybe 15, 20 minutes from my house here, maybe. And I think some of them would have their ice now. They don't have the ice during a lot of the summer, but sure. But then you have Mexico. You have 18 rinks that are double IHF standard. 18. So if the NHL puts some money in there, if the NHL generates some fan interest with Hispanic viewers, that number in Mexico should go up, right? Generally should go up. You should have more grassroots. Plus, you don't have to expand into a market necessarily to generate enough interest and to have that grassroots movement take place where all of a sudden little kids are playing hockey, and you might have a situation where a player comes out of an area that you do not expect that player to come out of and become a pretty darn good National Hockey League talent. The more athletes you have playing hockey, the better the National Hockey League should be. Now, Australia shows 20 rinks, again, according to the table I found. China has 410, and Japan 167, just as like examples of what we would consider non-traditional. Japan was one that the NHL, I remember eyeing around late 90s. The Canucks and the Ducks went over and played over there. The NHL hasn't done that much with Japan that I can think of in some time, but I think if the NHL does the Global Series right, it very well could expand the interest in the game without needing to put expansion teams in other markets outside North America, which doesn't work. And I don't think that a team in Mexico City would necessarily work either. None of the major sports in North America have put a team there. I think that it might get considered here and there. Maybe the NFL might be the one that would think about it the most. But yeah, the NFL is really pricey too. So I don't know that that would necessarily work. So the first thing you have to do is explain the game. And this is something that I try to do my best on this channel. Keep it as simple as possible. Not get into the weeds on some of the stuff. And just keep it as not surface level is the wrong way to look at it. But make sure that anybody watching a video that they won't get lost in the terminology. They won't get lost in some of the stuff that I take for granted and think, well, everybody knows this. I try to make sure I don't come at it in these videos with, well, everybody knows this. And then there's the teach the game part. So as regular season gets going, it's part of the reason why I do my notes the way I've done them, and I'm going to change them a little bit for this year's reviews. But I kind of think of it like, okay, it doesn't look like a lot is going on here. Or one example I use is this team A looks like they're dominating Team B. They've got a lot of zone time. But if you notice, they can't get to the net. If you notice, they're being kept to the outside. They can get behind the net, but the defense pushes them to the boards. They're along the boards a ton. They cannot get that point shot on the net. There's always 5 bodies in the way of the goaltender. So it looks like they're dominating, but they're not. They're getting that zone time, but they're being held to the outside. And while they might tire out the defending team, they're getting frustrated at the same time. But the most important thing to me, I think, is play the game. And one thing that is an impediment to ice hockey becoming as widely played as, say, basketball, football, baseball, any of the other sports that North America tries to, export, is cost. The cost of hockey equipment's high. There are programs now in place to help with that. We have them in Canada. Yeah, I know they have them in the States. They have them everywhere, really. And so the playing of the game is really, really important. The getting on the ice and getting that feel. I remember the first time that I went on the ice wearing a hockey jersey with a hockey stick and going, okay, this feels awesome. And so my fandom of hockey went from a 10 to about a 14 out of 10 because my math skills are really bad. But just having that experience, and just that first time I'm out on the ice and I'm just hitting a puck back and forth and thinking to myself, this is great. Why can't I just do this all the time? The problem is I was too old to at that point be put into hockey. Plus, my family didn't have the money for that. They didn't have money for all the equipment. So while I was out on the ice wearing skates and a jersey, I was still wearing. I think I was wearing sweatpants. I was not wearing pads, and it was not like a regular hockey game or anything like that. Because even though pads were nowhere near the amount of money that they are now, it was cost prohibitive to my family. Is a good way of putting it. I was dirt poor. Is another way of putting it. Now, from the National Hockey League's perspective, so once you've got explain, teach, and play out of the way, celebrity appearances are obnoxious at times. I roll my eyes too at some of the stuff that they try to shoehorn in. NASCAR being one I've talked about before, where some famous NASCAR driver or somebody famous from another sport will be attending a game, and so they send down a reporter to go, is it fun? Do you enjoy this? Is it fun to watch? Aren't they fast? Which it's hard for us, but again, it means that you're trying to convert that fan. The one problem I have with the whole interviewing the guy from NASCAR thing is NASCAR fans aren't automatically watching the NHL because they hear that their favorite driver is at the game. Like nobody's going, "Hey Bill, you're not going to believe this. They're interviewing that NASCAR guy you like? Yeah, Billy Bob, Big Billy Bob there. Yeah, he's there. Yeah, I don't know what his real name is either. But like he's there. You want to watch that's not happening. That's just not happening. So that's where I get confused. But on the other hand, you have celebrities that go to games. Famously, Will Ferrell's at all the Kings games. I would love if I go to a Kings game to get a chance to meet him. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I think that would be fantastic. But yeah, celebrity appearances can be big. When the LA Kings got Wayne Gretzky, it wasn't just they got Wayne Gretzky. The celebrities were going to the Kings games. Those celebrities that had just been going to Lakers games, now they're going to Kings games too. And it made a difference. It generated a buzz. So as obnoxious as it can seem to some of us longtime fans at times, it's kind of fun to watch at the same time. Cross sport promotion. So I mentioned the whole NASCAR thing. Well, what? And I talked about this yesterday in a video too. I didn't have any news to report yesterday because all of it seemed to be, hey, look, baseball's happening. So we're gonna put a bunch of hockey players over. It just felt like all of the baseball, hockey crossovers you could have were there. And now today, of course, is the first day of the NFL season. So there's nothing happening in the NHL. It's so dead quiet. And my belief is it's because it's the first day of the NFL season. Nothing is going to generate interest. Nothing. So now that I've said that, now something big will happen. But at any rate, cross sport promotion can be big. The smartest example I can think of this, and I know people don't consider WWE a sport, blah 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 blah, but World Wrestling Entertainment, when they show up at an event and they hand the championship belt to a winner, and it's got the logo of the winning team and it looks really sharp, they know exactly what they're doing. They are getting people to go, hey, that's kind of fun. You might sell those belts, which they've started doing. They sell those belts for a ridiculously high price, but somebody's paying it. Somebody's paying it. So WWE is guaranteed to at least sell a few of those belts by giving one away to the winner of the football game, the baseball game, World Series, Super Bowl, that kind of thing. But we've seen it with hockey too. Now they're making those belts for the NHL teams. And I'd love to have one, but at that price, I've been informed by my wife I would have to wear it all the time, every time. Sleeping, yep. You got shower, yep. You got to wear it there too because it's so expensive. But cross-sport promotion is big, and I think what WWE does there is really, really smart. I don't think the NHL could just hand out little mini Stanley Cups to everybody for when they win a Super Bowl. But, I mean, they could do something fun for cross-promotion, right? Which is basically what it is. You're giving them a championship belt for winning in their sport. To me, it's kind of silly, but it works. It absolutely works. And now they're going to make tons of money on those belts. Not for me, apparently, but they'll make... I couldn't justify that cost. There's just no way. And then documentaries. I think the NHL's finally waking up to the reality that in this day and age, we like to have at least some idea of what goes on behind the scenes. Now, reality TV is not reality. We know this. And there's one reality TV show in particular that I may quit watching because I'm starting to get aggravated by all of the accusations about how certain uh it's just it's not as real as it looks, and it's even faker than it looks, and I'm kind of getting irritated by it. But that's a whole other discussion. But documentaries can be big and giving us a feel for what players are like at home and what players are like with their teammates. And it can be great. I know that when this channel started up and I was able to watch all the games, when this became my full time source of income, that seeing all of these little blurbs about players when I was watching regional games and finding out about charities and family and stuff they were doing and tough things they were going through, I felt more connected to players. And it is the reason, it's a big part of the reason why I stopped hating on so many teams. Um, I was just as tribal as many others at some points, where I would cheer for the teams I did, but if you were a rival of that team, I didn't like you and I wasn't necessarily a big fan of your players. But the more I get to know hockey players off the ice, sure, some of them are jerks. There are some of them are jerks, but there are so many good people. When I went to Anaheim in February and I was interviewed on their radio broadcast, the radio broadcaster who interviewed me said that one of the best things that he's experienced in covering hockey is meeting the players and realizing what great people they were. And again, he didn't mean all of them were great people, but he had met some really, really great people. And that the more he got to know the players, the more he cheered for hockey and the more hockey he wanted to watch and be around. And that he absolutely loved it. It was a dream job for him to call the games. So it's a sport where you have, again, you have your share of players who might have big egos and maybe they're not great people. But there are so many really good people who don't necessarily have the ego. You have to have a certain level of ego to be a top level um, athlete. You have to have a certain amount of I'm good enough in your brain in order to be a top level athlete. But they're good people, and I think documentaries will go a long way to that. Plus, and I'll loop my wife in. I'll use wrestling again as an example. I can watch Dark Side of the Ring with my wife. She'll watch it with me. She doesn't want to watch wrestling. But Dark Side of the Ring, which tells you the behind the scenes and some of the maybe ugly stuff that's happened in wrestling, she'll watch that with me. She has no problem with it. She enjoys it. She finds it interesting. So if the NHL can get more into that space, I think it works to their benefit. So I think they're doing a good job. I think that what we've been seeing has shown the potential. Now I get asked about the demographics on this channel too, so I thought I'd throw this on the board. Over the last month, 41.2% of my views are from Canada, 40% are from the USA. I'm not surprised by this at all. The time that I upload my videos works best for a North American audience. I cover North American hockey. And during the off season, Canadians have more interest in hockey than Americans. Makes absolute total sense. I would think today about 80% of the viewers are probably going to be from Canada, and Americans are going to be accidentally clicking on it while trying to check the latest NFL scores. 4.3% of the audience from Finland, 3.3% from Sweden, 1.4% from the UK, 1% from Germany. So those numbers all line up with what I knew. The UK is an underserved market by the National Hockey League, and I think they would be wise to put some more money and efforts into the UK and playing a little bit in the UK, because I think the market is there. The tradition, the history is there as well. Great Britain at one time had a very good hockey team, and they had some very good fortunes when it came to the Olympics. I think it could work again, but I'm not trying to tell the NHL what to do or anything. But the UK's right there, and I absolutely think that can work. Now, I also wanted to talk a bit about what we're talking about here, which is Mexico City. 2,294 views that I've had over the last month are from Mexico. I have made no effort to address people in Mexico. There's been nothing on my channel to do with Mexico. The NHL has not done anything with Mexico that I've covered on the channel until right now. So those views, if you put some effort into it, can go up. 2,089 views over the last month from Italy, and of course that's where they're holding the Olympics in 2026. The NHL has some work to do um, with some of these countries that I think it can work. I think Italy can work too, just in terms of drumming up interest and winning over some fans. Because again, I have a Belgium jersey that I've got ready for the next World Cup. I've been trying to get like soccer jerseys here and there, but I don't want to pay the amount of money that some of these jerseys cost. But I'm excited about the upcoming World Cup of soccer. And I mean, honestly, I think that says a lot about how you can win over fans of a league without even having a team there. Now, there's the Vancouver Whitecaps, of course, in Vancouver, but that's not Premier League soccer. So the fact that I follow Premier League soccer enough to have favorite teams says something about their outreach and their ability to reach a global audience. And the NHL, I think they're doing their best to try to get to that global audience. At times, they've had their issues with the growth globally, but I think they can get there. And again, the expansion I think will remain in North America. It'll remain in semi-traditional to traditional markets, and we'll see how things turn out from here. But let me know your thoughts about the NHL's outreach globally, or do you think the whole thing doesn't make any sense and just play the games you got and don't worry about expanding your business, keeping in mind the whole business motto of if you're not growing, you're shrinking. So there's that. Because if you're not growing, your competitors probably are. And in the sporting world, that would definitely be the case. If you're not growing your fan base, some other sport is swooping in to do that. And they also want your fans while they're at it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.